Well, today we have CC again, and he's got a bit of a twist to his usual rant about the flat Earth. He combines the electric universe theory, which I started a webpage called, well, it was called the Anti-Electric Universe webpage. Now it's called Maritime Space Advocate, or Maritime Science Advocate. Too many IDs. But yeah, but it's basically that they think that there's giant currents flowing through the universe that powers the stars and the sun, etc. But let him explain his version.
Okay. I want you to think about something. I want you to think about... Oh, well, first off, let me just start off with, it never got dark last night. Like, I'm talking like midnight dark, like it usually does. I know, I live in Westchester County, there's a lot of light pollution around here. But not like yesterday. If you notice the clouds above me, this is how it's been for the last 32 hours, I believe. Just a nice milky white cloud. It was like that all night. The moon is at, I think it's between 14 and 21% right now. So it couldn't have been the moon, okay, that was enlightening the sky or whatever. It wasn't that. Not like, you know, you get a full moon and you can actually see everything at night. No. It was something else. Now,
sounds like some light pollution reflecting off the clouds. Maybe made it a little worse because it was smoky for a while in New York, but it doesn't.
For sure, the scientists will explain to you that there's a big chunk of the sun that just blew off, and it's the size of 20 or 30, the length of 20 or 30 Earths. They just make this shit up. That doesn't matter. You'll buy it, right? Sure. They all buy it.
There are several satellites that keep focus on the sun. There's SOHO, which has been around since the 90s, and there's Stereo, and then there's the Parker Solar Probe, which is actually makes dips into the solar atmosphere. So that's how they know how big of a chunk came off.
Like an hour before the sun goes away from us. Or no, comes toward us. Okay? So it was like an hour before the morning, you get that kind of like, the sun is collecting its energy, you know what I mean? It's electric energy, because that's what the sun is, electric. That's what everything is up there, electric. So the sun is collecting its electric energy. So basically, you know, when people say, oh yeah, the sun rises at 5:40, whatever, 5:43, we'll say, no, it doesn't. It starts collecting its energy at like 4:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you can see this firsthand because the sky starts to lighten up a little bit. But anyway, that's what it looked like all night. Okay, so.
Well, there is a crank theory called the electric universe or plasma universe theory, where they think there's currents flowing through space, but it still requires space, which CC doesn't believe in. I don't know what CC thinks is powering the sun. Maybe a cold power fire plant, but or well, if it's a nuclear plant, that is the sun, depending on your definition of a nuclear power plant. But they also, flat earthers also, some of them think that the sun comes close and comes far away, comes close and far away. Close is day and far away is night, and it just really doesn't make sense. But because the measurements don't add up.
The scientists will tell you this amazing thing is happening and we're getting all these solar winds. Bullshit. Okay? Total nonsense. There is no space. But that's what they want you to believe. So my question is, how do they know this? How do they know that this is going to happen? That we're going to be able to see northern lights in areas we usually can't see them? How do they know this? Well, I'm going to give you my belief on how they might know it. What happens if you had a budget of billions of dollars, okay? Billions of dollars, and you can do with what you want with that money, anything that you want.
Like build satellites and probes to probe the sun? That's what scientists would do with billions and billions of dollars. Oh wait, we're actually already doing that. That's how we know that all these particles are coming to the Earth and interacting with the poles. The northern lights are created by when the sun comes to the sun occasionally gets, every 11 years, the sun goes through a solar maximum, which there's a number of sunspots. This is because the sun doesn't have one magnetic field. It has several loops that go from the North Pole to the equator and from the equator to the poles. And as the sun rotates over the years, it rotates at different speeds, and all these fields get twisted up, and all these magnetic fields eventually break, and we get solar flares. And another process is what they call a corona mass ejection, which is probably what he's referring here. The sun just loses control over a small section of the sun, and it comes towards Earth, and because of the rotation of the Earth around the orbit of the Earth around the sun and the rotation of the sun, these particles catch up to us, interact with our magnetic field. They go towards the poles. This is why it's mostly seen near the poles. But when there's a lot of particles, it makes bigger aurora displays. And what happens is the atoms get excited. The electrons get excited from a lower ground level to a higher higher energy state, and then they come back down and emit a photon. And like if you see green, that's usually oxygen, and that's from 100 to 300 kilometers. Pink and dark red is from nitrogen, and blue and purple is usually from hydrogen and helium going through this process. And we measure it, we study it, and there's people who study the plasma interactions with the upper atmosphere all the time, and that's how we know.
Meteor that they told you came down to kill them, they drown. Okay, what happens if those stars up there tell you exactly how our civilization is going to end, and they know the time, about roughly? They were wrong about 2012. They were wrong about 2000. They've been wrong every time, but their deciphering isn't very good. But if you had all the money in the world to do whatever you want, the first thing I would do is I would research Antarctica, and I would go to the North Pole, and I would spend my life researching those two areas, because there's a lot of stuff there.
The 2000 thing? You mean like Y2K? Well, a lot of people planned ahead and figured out what to do to solve the Y2K. 2012 was really scientific. It was people going, well, the Mayan calendar ends on this date. Well, the thing with the Mayan calendar was it just was turning the page. It's just a very long cycle calendar. Well, it has multiple cycles, but it was just turning the page to a new cycle, like a new year. So it had nothing to do with the end of the world. It's just people misinterpreted it. And about stars figuring out how our civilization is going to go, you mean like astrology? Are you confusing astronomy with astrology? A lot of people do, but well, we'll figure this out probably by the end.
What happens if the scientists, or whoever they are, the people that are running this world, have figured out exactly how to decipher all the lights that are up in the sky? Because the lights up in the sky are giving you a look on the future of what you live on. Okay? That's basically what it does, I think. That's my belief. All right, what happens if they were able to figure that out? That's why the stars don't move.
What astronomers do is measure the sky. They measure how stars move, how the difference in brightness changes over time. The stars do move. It just takes a long time because there's such a huge distance for them to move. So like one orbit around the center of the galaxy takes over 225 million years for the sun, and a lot of the stars that we see are moving pretty much at the same pace. They're fairly close by. So they do move, and they do measure it. Finding the future, it's actually more like the past, because the light takes a while to get to us. If you're trying to predict your future from from the stars, that's more astrology, and that's more pseudoscience than it's science. My video editor is getting a little glitchy right now, so I think I will cut it at that. There's a little bit more left to this, but it's just basically CC getting the difference between astrology and astronomy wrong, and grouchy that astronomers find more comets and change their minds, and that Andromeda is headed towards us in about 1 billion years. Well, he thinks it's 1 million or 2 million or 20 million years, but that's basically what's left to this video. But the thing is when Andromeda is about 2.5 million light years away, and when it does come close to our galaxy, when it interacts, the stars are so far apart that they won't collide with each other. But I think I'll shut it down there. I'll probably do something with the Andromeda bit later. But thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed it and understood it. And have a good day.